under the GIZ Special Initiative on Training and Job Creation in Ghana. We are going to have 3 presentations, and after that, we'll get into the panel discussion. And I'd like to acknowledge the various companies watching online, the AGI members watching online, and also the German companies also watching online. Thank you very much for staying with us. We've heard from the Vice President SME of AGI Ghana, Mr. Humphrey Enyim Dake. He gave us the welcome remarks on behalf of the AGI. We also had the introduction of AHK Biz for Jobs and the Intra-African desk, which Stephanie, she's the head of Competence Center, Private Sector Development and Projects. Stephanie Simon gave us that presentation. And then we had a presentation on the role of the AFTA Secretariat in ensuring the success of the Continental Free Trade Area. We are going to hear from an Afro champion, a man who has been very instrumental in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the conversation, the policy, the public awareness, bringing businesses on board. He's a senior partner at AB and David, a law firm in Ghana, which is also ranked among the top 50 law firms in Africa. His practice areas include banking and finance, construction, energy, government business and regulation, PPPs, procurement, projects, etc. And he's described as a business-oriented person and has a practical vision, and he knows almost everyone. In 2019, 2020, he had solutions that were looking for problems. You know, usually you have problems looking for solutions. But he started a conversation of solutions looking for problems, which helped a lot of young businesses and young innovators get the right push to deliver solutions to Ghana. To present on harnessing investment opportunities under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. David Ofosu-Dorte. Yes, let's just remove this.
Yeah, you hold the microphone and then when
Directly into it.
you let us move it for you.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me at the back? Okay, good morning, everybody. And thank you, Kojo, for the nice words. I think somebody's phone is here. If you can. Okay. So I'm supposed to be talking to you this morning about harnessing investment opportunities under the AFCFTA. And it's a 15, 20 minutes or so. I will try and make the time. But I'm not going to talk about the opportunity, the AFCFTA itself, which Dr. Mangeni is best qualified to do, and he has already done. Suffice to say, it's a larger market and comes as part of Agenda 2063 with all the things that come with it, free movement, etc., etc. And for many, it's an opportunity. But before we can harness that opportunity, it's important we understand that every such opportunity occurs with other things as well. And one of the worst ways to attempt to harness anything is to look at it as if it is the only game. I want to repeat that. It's important to recognize that anytime you want to harness an opportunity, there is something else happening. And you need to look at all of it as a whole. Because invariably, these events converge or diverge and enable you to take advantage of the opportunity or otherwise. So what else is happening around us beside the AFCFTA? Of course, AFCFTA is happening. I'm here to see Ghana's country strategy. I'm aware there are committees. I've had occasion to be invited to a couple of the committees. I've just spoken to Mr. Yamibefi, and he tells me it's going to come out soon. But other countries are also strategizing. Yesterday or 2 days ago, Gabon just appointed their country strategy developer, which happens to be led by a Ghanaian, actually. Now, this tells you, tell you that countries are positioning themselves. So that is also happening. There is sovereign debt. A lot of countries are broke because COVID happened. And as a result, countries have to be restructuring their debt when we ought to be harnessing the events, the advantages of the CFTA. They want to avoid risk. UK has exited Brexit, Europe, EU, and there is Brexit. But at the same time, the European Union has signed a pact with Africa, out of which Germany, incidentally, seems to be leading the drive in what some have described as Germany's Marshall Plan for Africa. So that's also happening. Then you have digitization happening. Then you have the idea about digital currency, new supply chains. Everybody talked about new supply chains, but it seems that the supply chains didn't really change. At least if I look at COVID vaccine, it's still China, Russia, India, aside America, and Germany. So the supply chains for that side seems to be the same. Yesterday, I actually watched a biotech industry on CNN saying they are looking for people who can help manufacture vaccines around the world. And they mentioned Africa. I'm not sure whether there's any pharmaceutical company in Ghana positioned to manufacture vaccines. So the opportunity may be there, all right, but if you are not prepared, you can't harness it. And India will harness it and will become the largest manufacturer of vaccines around the world. Fintech is happening, digital currency is happening, infrastructure needs. China is still happening. The FOCAC will happen this year. So President Xi is likely to be in Senegal in the course of the year. And China may either add up or re-promise the $63 billion. I don't know how much of it has been disbursed, but that's also happening. The federal government lack funds is also happening. So all these things are happening at the same time that CFTA is happening. Your attitude as a businessman to these things will determine how much you can harness. And those are some of the thoughts I need to share. And I live by the principle of 15-15, 20-20, 15-15. Let me explain what it means. When any such major event happens, 15% of the people cannot be boarded. Can you move the slide? Oh, sorry. That's one of the challenges I have. When I'm not the one controlling the slide. Sorry about that. Can you bring me the remote? Initially, I thought you could do it for me, but I think, or go to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So I was talking about all these things on the assumption that we were on the same slide. My apologies. All right. So these are the things that I said were happening. All these things plus more. Now, when such a major event like CFTA, COVID, everything happens, you can divide the people into about 6. Your slide is not moving, so maybe you should move it from there. Go to the next slide, please. All right. 15% of the people will not be boarded. They will not really even care. In fact, they may not really know that something is happening. I led a study across Africa for a major DFI in 8 countries, comprising Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, and South Africa. And when we interviewed major exporters, about 25% of them had no idea about CFTA. Of course, a large part had, but many of them were not intending to do anything about it. So that's the 15%. Another 15% will see it as a threat, and as a result, may want to attack or retreat. So you will see the kinds of businesses who will say, why are foreigners setting up here and close their shops, etc. That's another group. That's how they will react to this, and it will even worsen. Then you have another 20% who just think it's policy change and will do business as usual. Interestingly, these 20% have the mistake of thinking they have changed. They are the ones who will be very much interested in rules of origin, what forms to fill for exports. But it's business as usual because it simply means that instead of ETLS form, he's just filling a new form and exporting to Nigeria. But really nothing has changed. They will belong to the 20% of this group. Then there's another 20% who will see it as a major opportunity and want to take advantage of it. whilst at the same time watching the threats. Those group tend to look at where the opportunities are and attend conferences like this, and is looking for who they can partner with, etc. Then there is a 15% who would see it as a real big market and will develop strategies beyond the usual. And those last two categories, that 15% who see it as a big market, and those who see it as an opportune moment to transform, are different. And let me explain why I'm not saying it is an opportunity to transform, but an opportune moment to transform. Because transformation is not instant. It happens over a period. So, for example, if you knew AFCAT was happening and COVID happened, which is what I described previously, but during that period you've not prepared, then if there is an opportunity to do vaccines, you don't have that opportunity. You've already missed it. So you need to seize the moment and plan actually. And 2021, unfortunately or fortunately, continues that moment we are still able to seize until CFTA becomes fully operational. That's how I want us to look at it. Let's see the next slide. So we are looking at how to harness. So there are 6 attitudes. Can you move to the next slide, please? Okay. The next thing is that it depends on the rank of ladder you occupy. In other words, in the sector that you operate in, where exactly is your position? Because otherwise you end up developing a strategy which is not fit for your context. And I've seen people developing, as I say, they develop a Goldman Sachs strategy for an unbanking financial institution. Because they are not sure exactly which rank of the ladder they occupy. You cannot appear to be exporting around the whole of Africa when your product is not even known in your vicinity and the locality. So you have to do your strategy to harness it based on the rank of the ladder you already occupy. It doesn't mean you cannot export to Africa if you are not exporting to Accra. It means the strategy for exporting to Africa is different. That's what it really means. All right, let's have the next slide. Can you have the next slide, please? It also depends on market trends and how you interpret the market trends. And let's touch on a few of them. These trends I have shared with quite a lot of people and quite a lot of fora, and these are certified trends. Agri-sector alone, and if you move agri-sector to food consumption, you have $35 billion being consumed in urban centers currently, expected to grow to $110 billion by 2025, and the rate is still growing, and expected to hit $150 billion in terms of urban food market by 2030. So a good person who wants to harness will look at the 2021-2030 range, and you see the rate at which it is growing. And then you realize that if CFTA is located in, headquarters is located in Accra, it drives a lot of movements, civil servants location, and therefore urban demand for food. Accra is likely to be one of the centers. Or if you were located in Lagos, you realize that the fact that Lagos population is equivalent to that of Ghana gives it a chance for you to manufacture bread, as an example. And that whilst you may be doing bread in Ghana at 1,000 loaves a day, in Lagos, the consumption is over 300,000 loaves of bread just in Apapa. That's the kind of figures you need to be looking at and see where do you position yourself. Or if you take manufacturing, I've moved from agribusiness, you realize that manufacturing is expected to hit $1 trillion by 2030. And that manufacturing drives a business-to-business agenda in terms of input supplies, etc., which is expected to hit $666.3 billion by 2030. So if you happen to be in that sector of business, that's the data to see how you harness it and how do you make sure that you are positioning yourself into the supply chain to be able to supply that. Or you can take a very basic data and say that tourism is going to hit from 86 billion to 200 billion. But then you have to change your time frame if you want to harness it, because clearly tourism is not growing between now and 2022 until we have fairly vaccinated most people in the world. And I believe tourism by the mid of the decade is actually going to boom again. But it's a question of timing in terms of harnessing. So the fact of just AFCFTA is not enough. a number of factors of these factors. That's the point I'm trying to drive home. Or you can take a very simple thing like clothing. And you realize that there are now 1.4 billion people in Africa who can purchase clothes from anywhere. A lady just spoke to me at the back that the husband is into making African fabric. That's huge opportunity. What we wear. So you will realize that the incidence of increased wearing of blazers and suits is likely to be competing against wearing of African fabric. And how you can position yourself to tap into the 1.6 billion market is, so for example, if I see Ghana's strategy, I want to see how the linkages are shown. If the linkages are not shown, then you adopt a different strategy. Or if I see customs making it more difficult to export fabric, then I realize that we are not driving the CFT agenda. Excuse me. Because there are times that we purport to be driving an agenda when really we are not driving an agenda. So, I mean, it goes to both the public and the private people here. Let's have the next slide. Next slide, please. You can move on to the next one. Yeah. So, the other factors that it depends on as we drive towards how we look at this is the quality and scale of the products you already have. And that's one of the biggest missing things when it comes to our psyche as a people. And I've been telling lots of people I speak to that not everybody wants to scale up. Some people want to remain small. There's nothing wrong with it. But they can still tap into the market provided they upgrade. So your ability to see the difference between upgrading your service and product and upscaling must be recognized. So as an example, if you are in a small business and all you need to do is to upgrade your products, and you're a member of AGI, what you need to be doing is influencing AGI to influence government to create aggregators and consolidators. Because the only way you can access that big market is for somebody else to aggregate a product which has the same quality. And if you look at German industries, you will find out that SMEs produce high quality that fits into the entire value chain. And our ability to aggregate is quite key. You want an example? Cocoa Board is one. It aggregates smallholder farmers across the country and turns over $1.8 billion per annum. That can be done in many other sectors. Taiwan has a similar economy. The other factor is the context where your business operates. Because if your business is operating in a context where the sector is not growing or the trend is not in favor of your sector, or let's say the policy is not favoring that sector, then that becomes an issue. Please stay at that slide. Yeah. Then the current visibility of your product on the market and the market share that it has. Because the smaller the market share, the less likely it is to be able to harness the opportunity, unless you want to move into the aggregation sector, which I talked about. Then, of course, relevance to existing trends. How are the trends? So if I talk about many people wearing clothes in Africa, new clothing, and you are not in clothing, it's not relevant to you. Or if there's an opportunity to manufacture vaccine and you are not in a pharmaceutical business, it's not relevant to you. So it's important that the trend is relevant to your sector. And then, of course, the ability to penetrate new markets and increase the share enables you to harness the opportunity if you are not planning to penetrate the new markets. And let me use myself as an example. I heard Kojo introduce me as a law firm in Ghana. We refuse that accolade. We insist we are a Pan-African law firm. Yeah, our headquarters is in Mauritius. The operation headquarters is in Ghana. We are in 5 countries already, hoping to be in the States shortly. And then we have a network that goes up to 27 countries. So we're already in Africa. And we've been in Africa since 2012. So if you look at the ability to penetrate the market, and you are not in that position where you have already penetrated the market, and you want to penetrate, you have a different strategy from when you have already penetrated. And again, we need to think about that. Lastly, a part which I think associations like AGI totally ignore or don't do enough, and I talk about it all the time. Fatima and I are always talking about it. Your ability to influence country strategy. This is much, much more important than we would like it to believe. Because at the end of the day, country strategy affects your strategy. Now, your strategy is much more difficult if the country strategy doesn't exist. So, for example, I use the case of customs. It's possible to take the form and fill the rules of origin and export, etc. But if you are competing with a product from South Africa, and indirectly, the product is arriving here because the transportation is partially covered, then you are not competing. Or if you are competing with a product which is in tariff-free, duty-free zone like the AFCFTA, but the cost of power in terms of per kilowatt hour is 19 cents, but the person is producing it at 7 cents, but you all are having 30% of your cost of product being catered for by power, then you are not competitive. So the ability of an association like this to influence government to drop power prices is key. How does that help harnessing? If you listen to the budget, and the budget talks about producing power, that is fine. But if the budget is not talking about reducing cost of power to industry, that is not helping you harness the opportunity. Or if you listen to the vetting of a minister, and the minister's vetting is not telling you a lot of things about how his ministry, irrespective of where it is, has a linkage. So I'll give you an example. If a vetting, I didn't listen to the roads minister's vetting, but if the vetting of the roads minister does not talk about how we finally do our part of linkage through Togo to Benin to ensure that there is a highway movement and that the non-tariff barriers are removed in conjunction with customs, then there is a problem. So it's very important that businesses see that country strategy affects their individual business strategy, and they work to ensure that they influence it. And I thought I should share this with you. And finally, of course, it depends on the sector you are in and how that sector is trending. Let's see the last slide. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So depending on the sector you are in, each of these sectors may have an impact or the other. And you need to know whether these sectors are being added to the basket of goods which are going to be part of phase one. So it's very important you know that it's going to be added to the basket, because it's only that which will give you that opportunity to be able to harness the bigger market. Last slide. So in my view, just to share with you in this short 15 minutes, your ability to harness depends on these factors, and your ability to recognize that there's a new era occasioned not just by the CFTA, but by many, many, many other things which is happening, and that the only way to harness this is for you to, one, reinvent your systems and procedures to take advantage, and two, more importantly, integrate it within the entire CFTA value chain so you can take advantage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ofosu Dote. So, senior partner at a Pan-African law firm, not at a Ghanaian law firm, and also a member of the Afro Champions. Please, another round of applause for him. For those of you who are watching online, you can post your comments and your questions. When we get into the panel discussion, I'll put some of your questions to the panelists so that they will answer for you. Now, we'll go to the next speaker. He is presenting on the readiness of Ghana for investment under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. He has been a key member of the ministry's, is evangelism the right word to use? Evangelism team on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. He's engaged a lot of businesses on the Continental Free Trade Area and explained to them what they have to do to be ready for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Today, he's going to share what the government, or Ghana as a nation, has done to be ready and what others should also do for investment under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. His name is Mr. Anthony Nyame Befi. And for those of you who don't understand the Ghanaian language, Nyame is God. So he is Anthony God Befi. And he's a technical advisor, multilateral, regional, and bilateral trade, Ministry of Trade and Industry. Please help me welcome him.
Mr. Ayim Dake, Vice President of AGI, Professor Alex Dodu, Director General of Ghana Standards Authority, Dr. Francis Mengani, Head of Programs and Projects, Ms. Stephen Simon, Rep from AHK Ghana, and distinguished members of AGI and distinguished members of the business community from Germany watching, participating in the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to congratulate AGI and then AHK for coming out of this useful program. And this morning, my task is to make this presentation, they say, around 10 minutes. So I will be brief, and then later, when we go to the panel discussions and others can support, or we can chip in. So my slide, please. So basically, what I'll do is that I'll go to the introduction, then on the readiness of Ghana for investment under the AFTA, we have taken three main strategies. The first one is that since 2017, the Ministry of Trade and the Government of Ghana have been implementing this 10-point plan, industrial transformation agenda, so that we can address supply constraint, improve the business environment, in order for us to take advantage of the AFTA. Then we have also come out last year with our new National Export Development Strategy. And then, as Mr. Ofusidote also said, we now have a draft AFTA action plan for the AFCFTA to move the process forward. So for the introduction, Dr. Francis Mangeni already spoke about the fact that when we implement the AFCFTA, it's going to lift about 30 million Africans out of extreme poverty, and then 68 million also improve their lot so that they go out of living on $5.05 a day. The other factor is that businesses in Ghana and Africa can also take opportunity of the AFCFTA to move them out from the distress that they encountered under the COVID-19 pandemic, and then also use it as a new business opportunity to launch into Africa. The next slide, please. The next one. Since the time is short, okay, the next one. So basically, since we have some German business community watching virtual, we want to talk about the minimum capital that investors can bring into the country under the GIPC Act. And for a joint venture is $200,000. For solely foreign investor is $500,000. Then for general trading, that is if you want to open shopping malls and others, it's $1 million. And then for strategic investor, that is if you're able to invest more than $50 million, then apart from the numerous incentives that we have under the Ghana Investment Promotion Center facilities, you can still negotiate with the government of Ghana for more incentives. You see, so you can also take advantage of being a strategic investor. So, as I said, the first measures that the government has put in place since 2017, please, the next slide, is the 10-point plan for industrial transformation in Ghana. And we have 10 main key measures about it in order to improve the supply capacity of businesses in Ghana, the industrial transformation in Ghana, the business environment, so that it will be easier for investors to go along and do their businesses, and also to attract new investors. And the first one is the popular one district, one factory concept. And it is aimed at adding value to natural resources in each of the districts. And so far, we have over 232 companies that have taken advantage of it. But those that have are fully in operation are around 80. The rest under various stages of construction, and it is doing quite well. The second is the National Industrial Revitalization Programs and Stimulus Packages. And they are basically to provide financial, technical, and other services support to industries that are already in existence. And they are potentially viable but are in distress, so that we support them in terms of meeting them maybe halfway to enable them get loans at the banks, helping them to come out with business proposals, technical feasibility studies, among other things. And then the third one is what we have termed the strategic anchor industrial initiatives. Because we realize that just continuing to do business as usual by merely adding value to our natural resources may not speed up the industrialization agenda. So the government has come out with about 10 projects under these strategic anchor initiatives to ensure as a new growth pool for the economy. Later, I'll highlight more on it. The next slide, please. Then the other one is the One Region, One Park initiative. And here, the government is encouraging business companies to set up these industrial parks or zones to make it easier for businesses who want to come and operate in the country to easily just locate without the hassle of getting land and what have you, and immediately commence operation. And currently, we have about 9 of such industrial zones in the country. And some of you know the popular one in Tema, and then the Shaman, and the what have you. The other one is that in Ghana, we have almost about 80% of our businesses being small and medium enterprises. So the government worked on a new Enterprise Ghana agenda agency in order to support them. And currently, the act has been approved. So the National Board for Small Scale Industry is going to be transformed into this Enterprise Agency for Ghana. And they will have a dedicated bank to really support SMEs in the country. The next one is what we have termed as industrial subcontracting. That is to link the various SMEs with large companies for them to supply raw materials and other services to them, so that in the course of the large enterprises booming, then they can also be taken along board. Then we have also, as the seventh one, export development. And here, the emphasis to aggressively promote export development to African countries under the AFCFTA. So you realize that in 2020, that is last year, Ghana launched a new national export development strategy. And the aim there is to increase the current about 3 billion non-traditional exports return to about $25.3 billion by 2029. And we see this as achievable, especially when we take advantage of the new strategic anchor industries. The other one is improving the domestic retail trade so that we can do business, improve the domestic retail infrastructure, and then in the course of that, more businesses can consolidate their position, trade among themselves, and then we can even get some consolidated products as from SMEs and export to Africa and other countries. The next slide, please. The other one that the government has been working on since 2017 is to improve the business regulatory reforms in the country. And we are happy to inform you that a lot has actually been achieved. Now you can register your company online. Government has come out with this new Insolvency Act. There is also improvement in building permit, as somebody was praising Professor Dodu and his co, and a whole lot of things to make it easier to operate in Ghana. Then finally, we also have come out with this public-private dialogue, where it's now possible yearly and then at times biannually for the business community to meet the interministerial dialogue team, normally Ministry of Trade and Ministry of Finance. And then we also have the presidential dialogue, where the business community are given the opportunity to meet the president and exchange views about them, so that at the end of the day, your concerns for the private sector will be heard. Please, the next slide, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, as for the strategic anchor industries, we have 10 project initiatives under it. The first one is integrated bauxite and aluminum industry. We also have iron and steel, petrochemical industries to add value to the oil and gas that we are currently have in Ghana, vehicle assembly and automobile assembly bill. And you realize that a lot of investors, foreign investors, have expressed interest in it. For example, for the automobile one, and currently some of the companies, including VW from Germany, Toyota, Nissan, Renault, Sino Trucks, they all have expressed interest, and they are setting up the assemblies, and some have even commenced assembling of their products. The other one is pharmaceuticals, and you know Ghana, we will say for West Africa, we are the pharmaceutical giants, and we are hoping to exploit the African market as a whole. Then in Ghana also, we are blessed with natural salt resources. If you look at the whole of West Africa, it's only Ghana and Senegal. And we believe that when we add value in the term of industrial salt, we should be able to take advantage and supply to Nigeria, Angola, and a whole lot of oil-producing countries in Africa. Then we have the garments and textiles, vegetable oil and fats, including oil palm, industrial starch from cassava, that we are doing quite well, and we can do more to boost the income of our farmers in the rural community, and then machinery and equipment. The next slide, please. So, to take advantage of the AFTA, the Ghana government has come out of national institutional structure made up of at the ministerial level. Then we have set up this national AFTA coordination office to act as a one-stop shop to provide information to the business community, then also to liaise with the AFCFA Secretariat to enable them effectively implement the operations. Then the Ghana government also has now launched the various technical working groups under the action plan of boosting intra-African trade. And the 7 clusters are Ghana trade policy, trade facilitation, trade-related infrastructure, trade finance, trade information, and then factor market integration. And we realize that these are the areas that when we touch, will go a long way to facilitate investment and productivity in the country. And we have now come out with a draft action plan that we hope that it will be validated. Some of you will be invited before 5th of March to participate, and then it will be validated before March ending so that its implementation can commence. The next slide, please. I have already spoken about the National Export Development Strategy, and these are some of the things. It has already been launched, and the implementation has commenced in earnest. The next slide. So, in the course of coming up with the National Export Strategy, and then looking at our past export and import performance in Africa, we realize that we have now come out with existing and potential priority high-performing products that companies already in Ghana can take advantage of, or foreign investors can also come and take advantage of them, of which the Ministry of Trade and GIPC are ready to support their operations. And these products that we believe Ghana has the comparative advantage to export to the African market are the processed and in-shelled cashew, horticultural products, oil seed processed ones, fish and fishery products, textiles and garments, natural rubber sheets, processed cocoa, aluminum products, article of plaster and other petroleum products. And all the strategic anchor initiatives, the products and the strategic anchor initiatives. Then we have beverages and then sugar. The next slide, please. So, in conclusion, what I want to say is that Ghana has already put up enough trade and industrial as well as investment promotion measures, and is ready to support investors, both local and foreign ones, to operate in the country. And I just quickly want to advise those foreign investors, especially the German business community watching, that they should consider Ghana as the first investment destination in Africa to do their business. And the reasons are simple. As you look at it from the presentation, we have a stable microeconomic environment in Ghana. We have a stable democracy. There is good rule of law. You can be sure of guarantee for your investment, among other things. So we encourage everybody to take advantage of the AFCFTA and expand into production. On this note, I thank you very much for your attention. By my email address and other things are there. Later on, if you want to seek more clarification or you want to get any information from trade, you can get in contact with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyame-Befi, for that presentation, giving us insights into the readiness of Ghana for investment under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Please, another round of applause for him. So if you want to do business with Ghana, we are ready and open for you. Rapid industrialization, business environment reforms, stable economy, political stability. Ghana is peaceful. We have over 5 billion cubic meters of water running on the surface of water every year. So if you need water to run your business, we have enough resource of that. And then human resource too, we are here. If you want to talk to him, those are his contacts. Thank you for that presentation. We'll take the final presentation and then get into the panel discussions where we are going to have the Q&As. Let me remind you that for the panel discussion, we have an Assistant Commissioner of the GRA, Mr. Fechin Akoto. We have a rep from the EU Delegation, that is the EU Trade Correspondent, Mr. Raphael Kwato. We have the CEO of African Brand Warrior. On Twitter, she is Sunshine Fatima, Mrs. Fatima Ali Mohammed. We have from Kasapreku Company Limited, Mr. Francis Holy Aja. And we have Dr. Francis Mangeni, the head of trade promotion. And Doc has left, so we are going to have these four on the panel. Now, before we get into the panel, I will invite a man who wears many hats, whose job right now is ensuring safety, standards, quality for national development and also continental integration. He is a Director General of the Ghana Standards Authority. He is also an Associate Professor at the Center for Clinical Tropical Pharmacology and Therapeutics at the University of Ghana. He trained as a pharmacist in Ghana before undertaking his MSc in biopharmacy and a PhD in pharmacy in the UK. When it comes to his work, he has over 25 years experience in industry, in public service, in academia, and I'm not really going to run through the list because if I have to, we are going to spend a bit more time here. Please help me welcome Professor Alex Dodu, DG of Ghana Standards Authority. And you're also taking your questions for both the physical and online participants. So just type in your browser and we will take your questions and put them to our panelists here. Thank you. Let me help you.
Thank you very much, Kojo. You are very kind. I tend to be shy sometimes, but I think I want to stand on the existing protocols. I think I want to thank AGI, Humphrey, Seth, for hunting me down and saying that whatever I do, I have to attend this meeting. And then I want to thank Stephanie, David, AB and David. I've had a recent nice interaction with AB and David, so it's nice to have met the boss himself and to note that it's a Pan-African company based in Accra. Mauritius is my other country, so I was very pleased to hear that. So if you are looking for someone to recruit, I'm here. And of course, my own boss, Mr. Nyemibe Ifi, is here, so I have to behave. Commissioner, I salute. I promise to spend no more than 12 minutes, maybe 15 maximum, of the 20 given to me. But I want to touch on something which has only been mentioned briefly in passing by David and then Stephanie. So what are the role of standards? And could I kindly have the slides, please? And my brother, Dr. Francis Mangeni from Uganda via Zambia or Lusaka via one of the two. I think both countries are also lovely countries that I love to do business in. Okay, so I'm going to deal with a direct question. The AFCFTA protocol has all these annexes. There's Annex 6, technical barriers on trade. I'll break them down because university teachers like to start on the basics. But I have a lot of provoking questions and investment opportunities. So I'll take the next slide, please. basically, businessmen and AGI here standards, technical regulations, technical barriers to trade. Let's face it, for the average businessman, this is all big English. They just want to do business. So how do we break it down to help them come on board? Next slide, please. Basically, standards are just a way of doing things, but it's codified, it's written out. Standards are simple consensus documents that a group can agree to guide their operations. It could be an international one, which means internationally developed, or even can be an industry one. In here, we can have our own standards for talking today, and once we codify it and write it out, is it. So by nature, they tend to be voluntary. But sometimes governments make it compulsory. Next slide, please. When governments think that because of health, safety, or the environment, a standard or a way of doing things should become mandatory, we then tend to call it technical regulations, because then regulatory agencies enforce them. And that is where the trick becomes difficult, because then it can become a barrier, because government is demanding that your VW should have a certain emission, which maybe the VW can meet it, but Okada cannot meet it. So where do we draw the line to ensure that this requirement for the environment doesn't hurt the small fishes, but at the same time, we also have a responsibility for protection of the environment, for individuals, and of course for countries. So next slide, please. So for us, standards make business move. They really make business move in the sense that you want to buy A4 batteries, it's simple. Just mention A4. We know the specifications. So that is what they are supposed to do, make life easy. Next slide, please. And when they make life easy, they are a tool for trade. Indeed, you produce your own car, you don't need to do all the wheels. Nobody does all the ties. Specify the size of the ties, and any tie can be bought to fit your car. The same for batteries. The same for any replacement part. That is the beauty of standards. Next slide, please. However, there's a quote from 1996 which is remarkable here. It says, standards are the glue that will bind the new world order, that will unite Canada with Vietnam and Malaysia with Russia. But when misused, they can be potent protectionist weapons. Meeting a variety of different standards and testing procedures can be costly, and they can also be used to block entry into markets. America doesn't want steel which is not made in America. Ghana doesn't want cocoa which doesn't contain Axim chocolate, and so on and so forth. And these things can happen. Next slide, please. So when the requirements begin to differ, that is when you have challenges. Fortunately, throughout most of the world, when it comes to measurement, we are using the SI units. We moved from the imperial. It's brought about a lot of peace. In Ghana, it took the biggest communication strategy to get us to move from driving on the other side to the proper side. I mean, from the British side to the other side. I mean, one side to the other. Okay. Next slide, please. And I took only one example. Take the standards for food. They are extremely variable. If you take aflatoxins in maize, it varies across the world. And because there's no standard, the EU one is the highest. And because of that alone, our exports of peanuts and even maize to the European Union is restricted. I don't see it as a restriction. It's a public health issue. Now, once we agree on that, for German businesses online, the question is, what investments can you make in Ghana to ensure that the vast agro potential becomes business that can access the EU market, being aware that the biggest single hurdle to some commodities is just aflatoxins. So it's a business area. And I think for health and safety, we all agree that you have to control things which can affect human health. Next slide, please. So if you look at the AFCFTA regulations, my brother, doctor said, we have the protocol on standards. And basically, it calls for cooperation. My interest is on the last bullet. I believe that resolving standard issues and technical regulations issues, testing, and so on, are huge opportunities for investment across Africa. There are very few globally known, in fact, to the best of my knowledge, none, African companies involved in carrying out conformity assessment or even inspection of goods for exports to other markets. The main players are all imported. Of course, if we have a German one situated in Ghana, the Standards Authority will be open for business because we want to access the global market, though Africa is our focus. And having the ability to have the quality of our goods assessed by a world-class agency means that it's good business for Ghana and for most of Africa. Next slide, please. So the Articles 5, next slide, please. 6, they talk about international standards. And this is important because within the CFTA, AFCFTA, yes, we want to boost intra-Africa trade. But by relying on global standards, our goods can also reach international markets. So we are not lowering the standards. We are helping each other to meet the best available standards so that we can trade amongst ourselves. However, if need be, we can also look at the standards to make it hugely Afrocentric. Next slide, please. So I have three slides on issues for consideration. Does African industry, the poor man in the farm, do they understand the issues of standards, standardization, technical regulations, technical barriers to trade? And even if they do, can industry afford to pay? Paying for the development of standards is one of the biggest barriers for industry. When Casapreco & Co needed standards for bitters, and we do have them, GSA led and paid for the development of the standards. As Director General, when I realized there was no standards for building, shall we say we had a donor funding it, the World Bank Group, but the funding ran out. And we took the view that we will pay for it from our own investments because we saw it as useful for the Republic of Ghana. So standards cost money and somebody is going to pay for them, but can we afford to pay for them? Can industry or should governments somehow subsidize the development and, importantly, the enforcement of standards? Can industry pay for testing? I mean, one of the biggest challenges to small and medium-scale enterprises is paying for certification fees. They just can't afford it. For a business whose turnover is 1,000 cedis a year, that's a deal breaker. I mean, they can't do anything. Can Ghanaian industries, the big ones, access world-class testing services right here in Accra? If Casapreco wants to export to Hanoi, can they have mutual recognition between the body in Ghana or somewhere else to make sure that their exports will get to the destination without problem? And last but not the least, if industry decides to comply and they invest in testing and standards, what protection do they get from governments, especially across Africa, where enforcement is weak? Because you invest all these things and your competitor does nothing, and they are competing with you on the same market for the same business. That is unfair, and that doesn't help. Next slide, please. So for me, a few more questions. What is the state of mutual recognition among Ghana's trading partners? And how can we use the standards of our key commodities? We now have a standard for sustainable cocoa. It is probably one of the most robust. It's useful. It targets women and prevents abuse of children. How can Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire especially use that to make more money? And then what efforts are we making to align both Ghana and regional standards to ISO, IEC to ensure that we are intra-Africally competitive, but we can also access the global market? Next slide, please. And then, like I'm saying, can our partnership with AGI and the German group help us to invest in quality infrastructure as a big business? And of course, what other investments do we need to make for people to come to Ghana and buy from us? And then what risk are we going to do in complying? Next slide. The Standards Authority has declared the year 2020 as a year of enforcement. We would enforce, even though it comes with risks. And what we are saying is that beyond the safety of the public and protecting the country, enforcement will make our businesses very, very competitive. So my next slide is actually a discussion between us and AGI. Next slide, please. We have opportunities to work. I think Mr. Nyamibi has mentioned 1D, 1F, and all the wonderful things we are doing. But how do we move from the talking and the paper writing to action and money in the pockets of people? Next slide, please. Good. Please ignore it. I was telling you what we do, but I think you know it already. So can I have the last slide? Yes, AGI. So, once again to AGI, do your members understand and appreciate the intricacies of all the things we are talking about? Standards, technical barriers to trade, technical regulations. We know they cannot afford to pay, but what sort of collaborations do we need to come into to help your members get access to those services, whether pay for service or pay as you go or whatever, so that together we can move forward? We believe that, yes, government has a duty to enforce the requirements to make trade clean and prevent the country from being embarrassed. But beyond that, we believe that we can move this country forward. So the last point I'll make is that we've come far. We are almost there. Let the talking continue, but let the business show in our pockets and in our livelihoods. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you. Please, another round of applause for Prof. In the middle of your presentation, I got some questions from some people in industry, and I think that is getting us into the panel discussion. Now, this question says, I'm following the AGI GIZ AHK program. I suggest we pay more attention to standards and requirements. The person hadn't heard your presentation. Then the person came on to say that this presentation by Prof. Dodu is on point, and it's assuring to know that the Standards Authority is ready to help us work on standardization and quality to be able to meet the demands of the market. So this is some quick feedback for you, Prof. Dodu. Now, those watching online, there is a platform for you to send in your questions. So in your browser, please type sli.do. sli.do. It's a platform for taking your questions and your contributions. Now, in that browser, enter the code 32060. So sli.do, a prompt will open, and then you enter the code 32060. Now, this will put you in the room created for this particular conference, and you can ask all your questions and also your contributions. On the program, we have 30 minutes for the panel discussion. In my heart of hearts, 30 minutes is not enough, but we'll use German precision to work with the time and stay within the time and have fruitful discussions. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the panelists that we have. They will sit up here, 2 to 1 table, and I'll be here to ask the questions. You also be home or wherever you are to ask your questions. Now, the first panelist I'd like to invite is the Assistant Commissioner, Ghana Revenue Authority, main driver for government revenues. Please help me welcome Mr. Frenchin Akoto, my own namesake. Now, the next panelist I'll invite here is from the EU delegation, the EU trade correspondent. Please help me welcome Mr. Raphael Kwato to the stage with a round of applause. I will invite the next person, CEO of African Brand Warrior, Mrs. Fatima Ali Mohammed, to the stage. Please welcome her with a round of applause as well. And she's here as the AGI chair for the Agribusiness Sector. Another round of applause for her, please. And the final person is from a company I like in Ghana. In fact, wherever you go, when you are celebrating, you have to pour something on the ground. When you are mourning, you still pour something on the ground. And they make some of my favorite beverages. The Alomo Gold is my favorite. It's really good. Please help me welcome from Casapreco Company Limited, Mr. Francis Holy Aja. Now, Francis, as you go up, I'll give you this, I'll sanitize you and give you this microphone. Then you share with your partner. Good. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to get into the conversations. We have about 30 minutes for this conversation. And I'd like to begin with Francis, then I'll go to Fatima, and then come all the way to Mr. Akoto. Now, Francis, I follow the news a lot. I remember when Nigeria closed down their borders because of the import restrictions that they had. One of the companies that was mentioned a lot was Casapreco, because the story was that you export a lot to Nigeria. With the border closure, you were losing a lot of money. Now, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area has kicked in, and importantly, you were one of the first companies to have exported under the AFTA to Nigeria and other countries. What was your experience within that process after the AFTA kicked in? Can you share with us any improvement you experienced under this new regime? And are there any new requirements by the receiving country for the exports? So basically, is life better now? And are there any things that should be done to make life better for you? Francis.
Thank you, Akoto. I must say we were lucky to be part of the first shipment under the AFTA program. And then I'm saying that it was a bit different from the normal processes that we go through to exports, or we used to do. Here, the first point of call was to get our products and company registered under the AFTA program through the Ghana Revenue Authority. And when we got approval for the product that we were supposed to ship, then a code was given to us, which we needed to quote on our certificate of origin, which was supposed to be issued by GRA in conjunction with the Ghana Chamber of Commerce. So for me, it was a bit quicker and faster for us, because the processes, even though it was the initial stage, was very fluent and then fast, because all the parties were there to make sure the process was followed up to the end point. Now, unlike before, we will have to go through a lot of inspectorate bodies at a different stage of time. But here it was done swiftly. Some were done online because of the rules that were put in, and then the use of the internet, which was a bit faster than before. So on the other side, we got to the point of exit, which was also one of the critical points, which causes a lot of delays shipping. So that also was very fast and quick for us to get the necessary approval to exit the product into the destination market. Now, so the other chunk of the business was on the other side of the market, where the receiving country or the market was also aligned with the rules and then regulations of the AFTA but it was just unfortunate due to the COVID. We had a lot of hitches, but it was a smooth process. And I believe that if all parties involved would adhere to the rules and regulations within the AFTA program, we will go a long way to make Africa a better place. And then also looking at the standards that are being built for companies to follow, as mentioned by Prof. It was really an important thing that we looked at, building the quality and standard in to be able to match up with the players in those markets that we want to take advantage of. So for us, it was a great news and opportunity for us to take advantage of.
Interesting. So would you say that business before, after, and business now is better than business before, after, even though we are dealing with COVID-19?
Yeah, I'm not going to say for now it's really better than before, because currently we are faced with the COVID situation. Things are a bit slow, but I believe that it is a greater benefit for the future for African countries and companies that are ready to market their products into other countries, because trade barriers are going to be taken off, and there's going to be free movement of goods, no barriers, no special quotas that will be slapped on other companies that are entering other markets. Countries will be sanctioned if they are failing to adhere to the required lay-down processes. And then it's not going to be like you sign and then you are running away from what you have agreed to do. So my only hope is that the authorities or the policymakers and then the government will have to see through that this becomes a reality. It does not become one of such that we are dealing with in the West African community, whereby people really sign to a treaty and then it doesn't work. It becomes just like a paperwork on the table, which is collecting dust. So for me, I believe in the execution should be closely monitored for us to have a bigger market, as we are all looking forward to. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Francis. I'll come to you, Fatima. So you are the chair of the AGI Agribusiness Sector. When Mr. Fosudote was here during his presentation, he gave us a breakdown of the projections when it comes to even just food, right? Now, in Ghana, over the past 4 years, we've spent close to 3.8 billion Ghana cedis on planting for food and jobs. We intend to spend a lot more going forward. Ghana, Nigeria, if you look at the global context, we are among the top 10 producers of roots and tubers in the world. Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, leaders in cocoa production. So let's just even forget cocoa. What will be your advice when it comes to the value chain, the agribusiness value chain? Where do you think are the areas that gives us the big opportunities, the growth pillars to be considered for our economy within the trade area?
Thank you very much, and thank you to the organizers for this event. I think it's a very crucial discussion for us to be having. And every time I see David's presentation, I feel like I'm going through an MBA class, and opening my mind, because it really hurts me as an African to not realize the potential that we have. And, we continue to blame the first world for all our problems when we are responsible for our own problems. We continue to have a frog in the well mentality. And I really hope and pray that the AFCFTA becomes a reality faster. And obviously, so far, it is showing case, because there are very many naysayers when it comes to the continent. And, everybody's waiting for it to fail. But I keep saying this is the last continent left on Earth before we move to the next planet. So if we're going to get it right, everybody else has done what they need to do, and we're just going to have to learn from it. So first things first, God entrusted only one person as the custodian of this earth, and that's the farmer. Okay, we're sitting here today purely because of the farmer. At any point in time, we wake up, we go to sleep, it is because of him. And with all due respect to those in government, you can go to a government office, turn up, read a newspaper from 8 until 6 in the evening, you're still going to be paid. But a farmer is not guaranteed an income, and he doesn't even know where fees is going to come in, because it's all based on linkages, and that's something that David touched on. One of the key learnings we need to take, not only as Ghana but as a continent, is what has this pandemic taught us. And the first thing that it has taught us is the need for localization and self-sufficiency. This is crucial. At one point in time, we were buying onions higher than the price of fuel. It doesn't make sense. People in the markets, if we just even go to places like Medina or Makola or wherever else, if you look at the tabletops, everything was being imported. Now we're put into a situation where everything, we're talking about a 96% import-based country, right down to our chicken, to onions, apart from toilet paper. And the only thing that was being talked about globally was, and even in Africa, was how people running for toilet paper. I maintain this, and I will keep saying this. COVID was a disease created by the rich for the rich, because a common man is not walking into a supermarket to buy toilet paper. He's interested in terms of how can he survive every day. So one of the things that we looked at was the mother, necessity being the mother of invention. What was the first thing that happened? All of a sudden, we stopped importing from China or wherever else, and we started creating PPEs locally. We started wearing local face masks. So it means that we can do this. We just need to change our mindsets to get to the understanding of a can-do mindset and approach. Everything is possible. I keep repeating this. I'm from Kenya. I'm a Kenyan. I come from a country where everything is produced locally when you talk from an agri-sector. I come in here and I'm having to go into a supermarket to buy chicken that's coming from Brazil. Can't we grow chicken in our own backyard? Can't we I'm bringing in fish coming in called penguin. When I check on it, it's a white shark. I'm supposed to be eating normal tilapia. So why can't I be bringing it from Kenya and Kisumu? So what is most important now is that how can we leverage ourselves as a continent to be able to use aspects that are coming in. So for example, if we know tea and coffee is growing great in Ethiopia and Kenya, what can we do as Ghana to add value to it? And start growing the same, take a seed from there, put it here, it's still part of the continent. If cocoa is growing here and our challenge is the processing, and we know that somewhere in East Africa we can process, grow the cocoa here, send it to, Kenya or wherever else, let's process. So what we do is we go with a collaborative mindset, so that it is not about me, myself, and my country. How can we work together and leverage the advantages each country brings onto the table? So I'm looking at this pandemic as a blessing in disguise, because I feel it has actually opened up our eyes to see the opportunities that face us. I do not want to mention countries, but I feel that we're still going through colonization, but it's more of colonization of the mindset, okay? We are giving out, and I'm talking this as a continent, where we're giving out our ports, anything to do with entry and exit to a country, to somebody else, who then will be able to take away your raw material, create finished goods elsewhere, and not be able to compete when we want to compete locally. So I think there's going to have to be a shift, in terms of our mindset as a continent, to be able to see how can we collaborate. Another area of opportunity, obviously, with the Germans sitting in here, and we know precision and technology. There is such an opportunity in the agri sector in terms of machinery. That's where we have a shortfall. Massey Ferguson is known to be one of the best areas. What can we do to ensure that the farmers are given the tools, in a manner that is going to be sustainable and also cost effective for them, so that we do not try and take away from a people who do not have anything. What we need is to be able to plant a seed so that it blooms. And this has to be done both as international players and also as Africans.
That's interesting. So we need to ensure that we use the advantage that we have as a continent to feed ourselves. Now, you mentioned David earlier, so let me refer to him. In a conversation I had with him about the Continental Free Trade Area, he mentioned all the opportunities and also highlighted some of the issues. For example, my friend has a 10,000 acre farm in the BA. He exports fruits to the UK and the EU. When he picks from the BA to Accra in 6 hours, in another 6, 7, 8 hours, it's in Europe. But if I need flowers from Kenya, for example, it may have to go up and come down. So my costs are high, and a lot of the products are also perishable. So if you are exporting raw agri-produce, you need to move very fast. So what recommendations would you give to us
So
with
like
all these challenges in mind? What should we do as a country?
I think David clearly put that out there. We need to start treating things with urgency. I'm so happy, GSA is here. The first things right now. I mean, there are quite a few bilateral agreements that have been signed up within the continent, as African countries. How can we use that to fast track? And I'm so happy to hear Casabrec is already taking advantage of that. I know a few people that are already coming in. So what we need to do is to first move away from this regional mindset. So right now you have CET trying to work on something in East Africa, you have SADC trying to work on something, and then you have ECOWAS trying to work on something. Those already are becoming in one set. We just need to look at the positive side. The work has already been built. It has been done. So we do not need to reinvent the wheel anymore. What has worked has worked. Let's take that and jumpstart it. Let's just move. It is a challenge, yes. I mean, if you want to get anything out of, let's say, Asia, it goes down first to South Africa, then has to offload in Nigeria, and then it has to come to Ghana because of the draft waters. I'm sitting here and I know I can buy beans at Maxmart supermarket coming in from Kenya. So again, it's about creating the opportunity, but looking at it from how can we come in with a collaborative mindset. Right now, if GSA, I'm sure, is already conversing with regional players, what can we do to already start jump-starting, not waiting for all the documentation policies? It's a trial and error. As we work along, I can promise you, even as of now, if we have all the documentations and everything in place, there's still going to be teething problems. So what is it that we can do and say that, can we speak to so-and-so country? Let's just start. Let's start implementing some things, even if it's on a pilot, a trial basis. And I love what Stephanie showcased, that sometimes you just need to do a pilot. Because if we're going to wait to get things to work, and we wait for things to get ready, we're never going to move.
Thank you very much, Fatima. I'll come to you, Raphael, before I come to Mr. Akoto. Mr. Akoto, I'm putting you last because I have a lot of questions for you. Movement rests with you. Tariffs, everything. So just relax for me. Now, Raphael, there's a lot Africa needs to learn from Europe because you've done it. The EU is the perfect example of continental integration, if the knowledge I have is anything to go by. Before I even ask you about potential investment opportunities that the EU has identified within the AFTA, tell me, what quick lessons must Africa learn from the implementation of the European Union and your integration to fast track the continental free trade area to deliver the value we want?
So, first of all, thank you for inviting me at this panel discussion. It's very interesting, especially for someone who just arrived 2 weeks ago in this country. But I'm coming from. I'm coming with a background of regional integration policy. So I think I can try to help and give some ideas to help also the African continent to get more integrated. I was very happy when my fellow panel here mentioned the fact that now with the African Continental FTA, the trade is much smoother. So you could cross the border very easily. And I would say when, of course, in Africa, the integration is still at the beginning, but the objective is to become a truly integrated market. And when you will reach this, you will see how nice it is not to have border at all, like it happened, for example, in the European Union, that you can ship your goods from one country to the other without any control, without any barrier and any extra cost. So I think that's the beauty of the economic integration, is to allow business to flourish and to develop without all the extra costs and the extra hassles that comes from different regulatory framework, of course, custom duties that are additional costs, standards that are different, and so on. So that's the first message that I give, is that the European Union, as a successful example of economic integration, looks at the African continental FTA very closely and very supportively. We actually contributed to this project with technical assistance and with all our means to support this process, because we think that that's the way forward, especially in a moment like we are now, that we need to recover and to get out from the crisis caused by the pandemic. And we think in Europe that trade is one of the tools that we have to get out from that crisis. You asked me about investment opportunities.
Yeah.
I think that's more to the business to tell, because here we have the German business, we have the European business also looking at this country with very strong interest, in particular on Ghana, because we know that Ghana, as was mentioned also by some speaker before, has some condition that enable investment here, like the stable political context, a strong macroeconomic result, and a judiciary system that is supportive for the business. So that's a key element for the business to invest in any sector, of course. Then when it comes to particular sector or industries, I would say exactly it's something for the business to decide. But I was very intrigued about the agribusiness sector. I think that's something, and you correctly mentioned that farmers and the business and the agribusiness is the basic for everything. So I think that that's an area that we are, in Europe, we are looking very carefully. It's an area where there are a lot of potential to bring here the technology, the capital, and the way to work in the agribusiness that can be very supportive for these countries and for the entire region to develop and to integrate. Actually, the European integration started with the agricultural common policy. So it's really one of the success of the European integration is exactly the agricultural policy. So I think that's one sector that should be developed. But another, looking more forward and looking in a perspective for the next decades, in Europe we launched our recovery fund, recovery plan to go out from this crisis, and two key sectors are looked for this. One is what we call the green business, so environment, and the second one is digital. So, of course, in Europe we have a certain different level of development, but I think also in this part of the world, in this continent, looking at sectors that are green, so developing a more sustainable way to produce and to consume. So, for example, I'm thinking about all the circular economy issue. That's definitely an area where I think Europeans are keen and ready to invest. And then the second part is the digital, the IT revolution, make also the continent more integrated thanks to the digital technology.
Nice. I'll give you one more question before I go to Mr. Akoto. So I was listening to one Ghanaian exporter after Brexit, and then he spoke to the BBC, and he said, if the government of Ghana doesn't do anything, 3,000 people could lose their jobs, because after Brexit, they have a new tariff arrangement with the UK, and they have the existing arrangement with the UK. I'm just citing this as an example. Now with the EPA that already exists, and then after kicking in, how do these two align so as not to create any confusion for businesses? Are there any problems in there, and how do we deal with this?
No, I understand very well this issue because we have it also in Europe, of course, because due to Brexit, all this smooth flow of trade that was before suddenly get an issue, because now there are new control and new, although there are no tariff, but there are still some procedural and administrative steps to do to trade with the UK. In the case of Ghana, because the UK exited the European Union, so exits also the agreement, the EPA agreement that Ghana has with the EU, suddenly tariff and additional procedure came in. I know that there are discussion to solve this issue and to have an agreement, which is important to allow business to continue with the UK, but that's something that is due to this choice that the British people did to exit the union and all the agreement that the union has with different partners. From our side, from the European Union side, for the rest of the other 27 member states, we have this agreement in place, and we are trying now to implement even better this agreement to make sure that if there are issues that can be solved within the committees that we have set in place, and also probably even going further in this agreement to make it more comprehensive and cover areas that are not yet covered. I'm thinking in particular at on the investment side, because the investment is an area crucial, as we discussed, for business, and I think if we can have a system that help and facilitate investment from Europe to Ghana, that will be very important.
Thank you very much, Raphael. I'm going to Mr. Akoto now, finally. So there is this fear, basically, that after it's here, we will implement it and implement it well. The integration of the continent will be well done. We'll move from the 5th largest economy in the world, if we implement after very well, to probably the largest economy in the world because of all the resources we have. 60% of the world's arable land, water, minerals, human resources, very youthful population. So we've got everything to be the world's #1 economy. There are some people who also fear that there will be businesses that will take advantage, like exporters that will take advantage of AFTA to bring things into Africa duty-free, external exporters, because they would probably bring something to Ghana, just move it along the continent duty-free based on whatever dubious arrangements they have. Now, what measures does the GRA have in place such that goods in transit through Ghana do not end up in the country? And the larger fear of people saying that, look, other exporters outside Africa could take advantage of AFTA to bring stuff into the country duty-free.
Thank you. My namesake, the moderator. Good afternoon, all. The AGI Vice President, Prof. Dodu, the organizers, all protocols observed. I bring you greetings from my Commissioner General and my Commissioner, Kenneth Kojo Damwa. Thank you, AGI, for giving us the opportunity to speak to pertinent issues that concerns your operations. Mr. Moderator, your question is very pertinent. I'll break it into two. The issue of transiting through our country, and also the issue of probably abuses, possible abuses with the rules of origin. Let me start with the rules of origin to allay the fears that people will bring goods from other countries and then just use our country or African countries as transit points and then try to enter other countries duty-free. I can assure our AGI members that the rules of origin are very precise. I wouldn't say strict, but flexible. They are flexible to the extent that the rules are very clear. The do's and the don'ts have been outlined. The rules of origin applicable under AFTA, just as we have under the EPA, are what we call the product-specific rule. When you take the customs document that we use, we call the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System, HS for short. For every chapter, every heading, and every subheading, we have preferred a rule to that commodity. And for every commodity that you are bringing, we code every import. We look at the coding and look at the applicable rule under that commodity that is coming into the country. And you have to satisfy the rule under that commodity before it can be accepted. If it doesn't accept or meet the requirements, then customs will not accept those communities under those facilities preferential treatment. That's why we are calling the rules of origin. So it will be very good for our distinguished members of AGI to be conversant with the rules. We have published them in the ICOMS portal. It's up to you to have a look at them and then get conversant with the applicable rules. And we have to train ourselves as customs and make sure that we apply the rules to the letter. The issue of abuses cannot be rolled out. That's why customs will have what we call origin fraud. So our officers will be trained on possible origin fraud. And some of these things are part of the things that we are going to mention to them. They'll be on high alert and be very alert to some of these things. And like we in Ghana, before we issue you a certificate, we'll have to come and go through your processes. And because we want to be very transparent and fair to everybody, it's not only customs that is undertaking this process. We have opened up to Ministry of Trade and then Ghana Chamber of Commerce. So these tripartite institutions will be involved in inspecting your production process to make sure that you meet the requirements. If you don't meet the requirements and you bring goods and want to repackage from third-party states and have them shipped to other countries, you will not get a certification from the competent authority. So I can assure AGI members that we'll be very fair in our operations and firm in our dealings with them. We'll make sure that we check on some of these abuses, and we are open for any feedback. We are open. We are not the only ones. Ministry of Trade is there. You can lodge a complaint with them. Ghana Chamber of Commerce, who also seek your interests, are there to check on these things. And let me talk about the transit. Transit, Africa has about 16 landlocked countries out of the 55 countries in Africa. And we recognize that transit is going to be a very big issue. So when we're developing the rules, we decided that we're going to get a dedicated annex to the protocol of trading goods for transit activities. So Annex 8 to the protocol on trading goods have been devoted to transit issues. We want to make sure that transit becomes a very important part of after activities, and the requirements and the processes that you have to go through will be has been outlined in that annex. And we in Ghana are going to be implementing that to the letter. And I can tell you that ECOWAS is also rolling out a program we call SIGMAT, which is an interconnected goods and transit management system. SIGMAT is on pilot with our French-speaking countries. Colleagues have already rolled on to it in their operating systems. Ghana, we haven't tried it yet because we had to change our system into a new one. Now that our ICOMS has been rolled out and is stable now, I'm sure my commissioner will take measures to have it roll out. And this one, we're going to have a common platform where we'll exchange transit data and information sharing. And then we have decided that for the meantime, the AFCFTA will use the ECOWAS transiting routes, where we have mandatory stop points. These checkpoints will just check on the documentation, but will not become trade barriers to check on whether those goods will eventually leave the country before the transactions are closed.
Mr. Koto, when he said they will not become trade barriers, I looked at Francis's reaction.
Oh, yes. Since 2017, we have removed a lot of our checkpoints.
Okay.
By the instructions of our Vice President. So we only have ECOWAS designated checkpoints on the road. So it's easy to do, and we have done it before. And then, like was mentioned earlier, the NTBs is online. Once you delay anybody, you have the right to go in there and lodge a complaint. We have national coordinators. Once you lodge a complaint, they get onto it, and then they tackle. They will quickly call SCGRA that these people are becoming a stumbling block to our activities. Check them. I'm sure Mr. Befi, they are the people responsible. So Mr. Befi will descend on the will quickly get hold of the agency that is becoming a stumbling block.
Okay.
I hope I've tackled that aspect of your question.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's 12:33. We are supposed to be rounding up around 1. So I'll be taking questions from here and questions from our online audience. We have quite a lot of people on Zoom. And then I'll also take reactions from my panelists if you do have any. But,
Mr. Mudre, can I just say something small before? I just want to speak about the presentation made by Prof. The issue of standards is becoming an issue. You know, after we made our shipment to South Africa, fortunately we had a conference on the AFCTA here in Accra. And the delegates were asking what standards do we use? Did you use our national standard or African standard or international standard? So it's become a very big issue. Unfortunately, we customs have not been so much involved in the issues of standards. So, Prof, will be I'm sure AGI will also be interested to know what kind of standards we use to be trading with in Africa. It's very, very important. Let's get this issue resolved. And then, we did our homework before that shipment was done. Prof was highly involved. And we know that we have met all the standards. We will not have any issues at the importing country. But others may want to know and then learn quickly from us. Thank you for the opportunity. I don't know the issue of EPA. Yeah. Let me just say something briefly. EPA is also very important to us and in customs. And I'm sure very soon we're going to start implementing EPA. And our engagement with EPA has helped us so much. Even when we were doing our dismantling schedule, we had earlier done one with the EPA. So we had to draw a lot of experiences and other things from the EPA experience. The issue of their rules, product specific rule, also had given us a lot of experience. And we're going to work hand in hand with the EPA, with the AFTA, and make sure that Ghana becomes better. Their rules on cumulation are very, very flexible. So it will accommodate whatever we produce here. And even in the agreement, they mention specific countries where, like South Africa, where you can get materials from there, use them, and they qualify under their cumulation rules to export into the European market. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akoto. So the question about standards was going to be my first question because somebody sent that question from Slido and wanted to let Prof. Dodu explain the standards we are going to use or the standards we are using under AFTA. Is it Ghana standards? Is it African standards? Are we establishing different standards for different things? The person wanted to know that. So, Prof, please note it. I'll come to you. Now, this question also says that more than 70% of businesses in Ghana are SMEs. How do we ensure we develop their capacity to make them take advantage of the AFTA? If I can answer on behalf of Mr. Anthony Nyamibefi, he said that the National Board for Small-Scale Industries is being reorganized into the Enterprise Ghana Agency, which is going to have a supporting bank for SMEs. So that is coming up. It will be great to know the timelines for that, though, Mr. Nyamibefi, if you have, so that people know what to expect, SMEs know what to expect. Do you have any timelines for that?
Yeah, I can't give a specific timeline, but I believe that by the end of this year, definitely the SME bank will be in place.
So the person who asked that question, by end of this year, we should get something on the Enterprise Ghana Agency and the SME bank. So, Prof, you have two people asking about standards, so I think I'll come straight to you, and then I'll go back to other questions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think your question has nailed it. Basically, for standards, the requirements are always that of the importing country. I mean, that is the rule number one. The importer determines what they want. However, under Annex 6, our interest is one, international standards. From there, we are looking at standards which are developed by the African Standards Organization, and we do hopefully have a meeting with the AFCFTA in March. But we try to make those African standards in line with ISO standards because it's a small world. Then where, of course, there are no standards, for Casaprec, we were lucky. Ghana did develop about 3 years ago standards for bitters. And fortunately, Casaprec has been exporting to South Africa and other countries, indeed, even to the EU. So we are also developing relevant standards to meet our needs. We now have a standard for aquatation, as well as all the other standards you expect for vehicles and other things. But for our local specific products, we have developed standards. We have offered them to the African Standards Organization. And thankfully, we are also harmonizing standards across Africa, mostly to make sure they are in line with ISO. But where geography and other reasons need it to be different, we make it different. So it's a national requirement, but we are trying to make sure national is as close as possible to international. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. So, okay. Francis, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would like to contribute to the standards and then to add to Prof's where he left from. So for me, it's not about bringing these SMEs together and getting the awareness of the AFTA to them, and then that is it, right? It's important for the policymakers or the drivers of the AFTA agenda, or the government, in our case in Ghana, to bring those smaller companies up to the standard. They don't have the money or the capabilities to meet those standards. So I am saying that it is the honor lies on the government to build them up to the standard for them to come to the level where they are going to have the playing field, the level playing field which the companies that we're going to meet in those markets. So it's not just a matter of organizing training and stuff for them, but we need to build a standard for them to also come up to be like the companies that they are going to compete with in terms of product, processes, and other things that will make them to compete on the market. Thank you.
So in this regard, we should make the standards even more available. I went to the Standards Authority's website to go and look for tomato standards because I'm thinking of producing my own homemade tomato puree, right? But I had to buy the standard. Right. Now for SMEs, buying something that ensures they produce quality, I believe is a bottleneck. So maybe I'm just saying for SMEs. Because if I need a tomato standard, I'm buying. If I need the standard, I'm buying. I'm investing my capital in something I know. But investing your capital in something which should guide you in producing quality. I believe sometimes, Prof, if you want to react to that.
Actually,
then I'll go to Fatima.
my view is twofold. For the big companies, we can have discussions. But for SMEs and small companies, at the risk of me being called, I believe that government has a role to literally pay for everything for them. I mean, there is no other way of putting it. Because you're looking at someone whose turnover is 10,000. To get a good management system, they need to invest 50,000. So we need to segment the market. They are the big guys who can afford to pay. And we need to have a frank discussion because other than that, they can never and they will never compete. Thank you.
So Mr. Vice President wants to speak.
I have a reservation, Prof. You made mention in your presentation that SMEs cannot afford some level of research. Considering that you are an entrepreneur, and you are determined to develop a product, there are some basic cost elements you must bear as part of your contribution. If you want government intervention on broad cross-cutting issues, you could make that interventions, because it's done in Europe, where some special interventions are made for some categories of business. Number one, the Ghanaian market is largely SME. So if you make an advocacy that there should be freebies for SME intervention, how is government going to survive? And what is going to be of the role of the entrepreneur? There's everybody's role that you got to take into consideration. When you do the classification of enterprises, then you could also do classification of grants and interventions. And then you define your role as a promoter if I want to do tomato puree and the standards that I need to meet to produce it. So as your contribution will be valid in your engagement. Number two, part of this engagement, there are some, we have the 80% what they call factor of production and of management theory. You might have a 20 that might move and get an intervention, and their value chain will lead to what we call the subcontracting concept that will drive some enterprises gradually. Casapreco, once upon a time, never had interventions from government when you were an SME. But the shared determination of your leader made a difference. So our advocacy is on the cost of funding. How can you use a cross-cutting item like power that can have an intervention that can benefit everybody? So instead of government giving you funding for your R&D, cross-cutting intervention in power can sustain you. Then you proceed on to other cross-cutting issues like funding. How can government lower and make sure cost of funding it's reasonable such that the SME could go get money and pay for it and walk the path? Those are the cross-cutting issues that we advocate for to soften the the business environment. But we cannot keep doing the freebies advocacy. It is challenging. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Please mention your name and go ahead. I'm coming all the way to the back.
So, I'm the CEO West Africa for DHL. First is to thank the organizers, AHK, AGI, and presenters, panelists. I think this is a critical moment for Africa. And personally, I'm extremely excited, but also I have a lot of fear. I have a lot of fear because we have still now ETLS through ECOWAS, and it literally failed. It failed not because of policy extra, it failed because there's a disconnect between the policy and realities on the ground. And why I'm saying that, because I see a lot of focus on exports, which means, getting Ghanaian companies to tap into the opportunities of AFCFTA, but I don't see also the import side. And when I look at the theme, opportunities for import, investment, and job creation, it means also sourcing, which will also support the rules of origin. And sourcing can be raw material, semi-finished product, but also finished product. And a lot of challenges happen in terms of not tariff, because, again, for ETLS, we just focus on tariff extra. The same for AFCFTA, of course, but it's important to shift also focus to non-tariff barriers, and not only the official non-tariff barriers, but the non-official non-tariff barriers. We talked about SMEs extra. We talked about women entrepreneurship, agribusiness. These small line holders, they're not trained enough, and they're subject to non-ethical practices when they have to cross border. Semi-border is an example also, which is official, but we have other examples. A lot of protectionism. I think we talked about the health, safety, and environment reasons for protectionism, and that is real. But there are a lot of protectionism that are just for domestic protectionism, and local content in Ghana is one of the examples. And we talk a lot, and you can see in the law when we talk about indigenous companies, discriminating foreign companies, which is also another challenge in Africa, and it's not only Ghana. So those are the real also discussions we should be having. Are we bold enough to say the origin Africa is what we're looking for? Indigenous company doesn't mean, if we want to be attractive, and I think that is one of the goals of AFCFTA, to have this market of 1.2 billion people attractive for investment, and people to invest but also get free access to the overall continent. Then we have to really work on such approach. Indigenous companies or local content or execution or protectionism extra are the real discussions also we should be having. I don't know if there are contributions on that, but I really have fear that EFCFTA may also suffer the same way other initiatives have suffered, like ETLS.
Thank you very much. Because we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to give each person I come to 45 seconds. Okay, 45 seconds. So you have the microphone. Please, I'll come to you. I'll come to you. So go ahead. So mention your name. And
thank you. My name is Chona Makwelo. I'm a technology entrepreneur. So my question borders more on cryptocurrency and actually payment systems and settlement for the continental free trade. So I wanted to ask David, because last 2 weeks, Nigeria banned cryptocurrency, a Bitcoin. The week after, Kenya actually endorsed Bitcoin. So that's clearly a conflicting position. But the truth is that these are technologies that are proven to be very effective in engaging in trading. I want to ask, what's the strategy for including cryptocurrency in this whole after conversation? I thank you.
So, David, just hold on. Maybe you have some more questions, and then I'll come to you for final words, and I'll go to the panelists. So let me just go around for the questions. And you have a short, okay, then go ahead.
Just very short comment. It's just in reaction to the AGI Vice President. I think when you don't have strategy, you end up becoming part of somebody else's strategy. We can leave it to SMEs to adopt standards that Africa Standard Organization will put in place. Or we can, as a nation, if we want to make ourselves an export hub, agree that we want to integrate them into the value chain, and therefore we would drop 2 of the land cruisers of ministers and use it to fund that standard for them. That is the only way you can achieve the aggregation I talked about, because without upgrading their staff, they cannot aggregate and we cannot be a good exporter. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Michael. I'm a lawyer at AB and David, Ghana. My question goes to Mr. Akoto. You mentioned that the HS code rules and the schedule of tariff concession documents are available on the ICOMS portal. I'd appreciate it if you could give us exactly where we can find these documents, and also if I need to log on and register before I can access them. Thank you very much.
All right, my name is Frederick Ejenim Boating. I'm from Gando Cosmetics Limited. We are one of the few companies who are also privileged to ship via the AFTA protocol. So I share the sentiments of Frank on the podium. My question is directed at the presentation from Professor Dodu. You mentioned in your presentation that 2021 is a year of enforcement for standards. And my question is Ghana specific. So I'm going to use the cosmetic industry as an example because it's home for me. We have standards which are published by you, which we apply. However, we see that our market is breached. It's probably some of the necessary rules of AFTA. How do you intend to enforce so that some of the harmful chemicals that you have specified that are not accepted per the standards that you have shared with us are complied with by other manufacturers who export into our country? Specifically noting that the point of entry for these manufacturers are the land ports. And we appreciate the synergy between yourself and FDA now to enforce it. Are you planning to involve agencies like the GIS, like the GRA to make this easy, especially so you stop the influx from their origin, i.e. the land ports, and then you don't go after them piecemeal in the markets like we see that you're doing? These are appreciable efforts, but they are dropped in the bucket. The real meat is in the entry point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm just taking the questions and the comments so that when I come up, we'll just wrap up. So your name, sir, and go
My
ahead.
name is Defo, and I'm with AGI, Association of Ghana Industries. I want Mr. Akuto to help or clear a bit of a bit of confusion in our minds. I hear people saying that, okay, I can grow my raw materials in maybe a country like Benin, then ship to China, production takes place, I come back to Benin and it is packaged. What's the nationality of that product? Is it China? Is it Benin? If you can throw a bit of light on that.
And then Mr. Agotebe Brepao, you have a lot of questions. Anyway, over to you.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Kumar. I represent Interplast. We are the largest pipe manufacturing company, and we do export a lot into West and Central Africa. My question, I have two questions. One, again, to Professor Jodu. So, we spoke about standardization of product, having an international standard. Our products are produced to international standards, though we still have a challenge between the imperial and the metric sizes. Ghana still in some product, we are still on imperial. The rest of the world has moved to metric. That's not a current issue. The certification which we obtain from Ghana standard boards, we find it a challenge being accepted, into the rest of the countries. And though whenever we approach GSA, they say there is an agreement and this is supposed to be recognized. My suggestion will be, when you are certifying the products, please can we go ahead and issue a certificate or make it very specific. These are the countries, these are the standard boards which have recognized, which we can use it for our bidding processes. Every time we had to go and explain it, it becomes a challenge. Then the local companies in those countries have an advantage over us. Yeah, thank you. The second one to Francis. Francis, when we were talking, they mentioned about the challenges you had with Nigeria market. What is the current status? Still, are you suffering with the Benin, Nigeria issue? Because all my business to Benin has stopped. Last 6 months, no business. So I want to share your experience as well on it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have the final question or comment, and then I'll come up, and then we'll take the answers and wrap up.
Okay.
Go ahead. Your name first, and then you go out.
Thank you very much. My name is Anthony Arthur from B5 Plus Group. My question is to Professor Alex Dodu. About the enforcement. This year being a year of enforcement. Question is, what are the timelines? normally, or most of the time, people say we just come have a talk shop and it's done. I mean, we've heard from him here. It's gone out. The notice have been taken. When is this enforcement action taking place? What do we look out for whoever is going to do this enforcement? And then also, new companies that are registering and having to, I mean, go by certain standards. Is there going to be a follow-up plan to make sure that they are going by the standards that have been given them? And also with the existing companies, do we do follow-ups with them to make sure that they are going by the standards? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So when we started the panel discussion, I started from this side. Now I'm going to start from here, then come all the way here. So Fatima will be the last person to speak. So Prof, you have some questions to answer. Please go ahead.
For the sake of time, I mean, I will just take them together, and then during the lunch break, we can look at the rest. I think a lot of the questions have to do with the year of enforcement, and I'm glad AB and David is here. So if I'm in trouble, I'll be rescued by the lawyers. The reality is that, let me answer the Interplus question specifically and take the... Are certification from Ghana valid across the world? The answer is not for all products. For countries to accept it, you must ensure that the organization doing the certification has international accreditation. GSA does have international accreditation, but it's for fish and fish exports, cocoa and cocoa products, and a few others. But locally, the law requires enforcement, ensuring that all products are certified. My approach, or our approach, is this. For companies, we've signed mutual recognition agreements, and we need to talk to the industries, because we have it with Nigeria, with SON, with the South African Bureau of Standards, with Morocco for the Maghreb region. We've been talking to KEPS in Kenya. So it's about talking to one another to ensure that we meet your needs. I would admit that the ideal situation is to get every single activity accredited internationally. And that is the only vision, because industry needs it. The bit on the year of enforcement, can we make it? The answer is yes. Way back in 73, the Standards Act, specifically Section 12, called on us certifying products, services, and practices. Over the years, we have not. And we have made our companies really suffer. So as I speak with you, half of my staff are getting ready to go to the Ghana Police for training. We know where the goods come from. And we do know for a fact that not taking action in enforcing is becoming not just an embarrassment, but we are losing business. People are coming in, B5 will tell you, with products which don't meet the requirements and competing unfairly with those who come in through official channels. Gandon made the comment. There have been a lot of what I call arrests here and there, but it's not sufficient. The huge amount of cosmetics into the market coming through porous borders. Yes, we have established presence ever, but it's not enough. So we talk to the police to create a militarized unit for quality. You need an enforcing unit which is regimented. Because it's not a bureaucracy. Enforcement cannot be a bureaucracy. You sit in the office and write papers. So it started. Will it continue? I did hint that what is the appetite for enforcement? The risk about enforcement is that you can lose your job if the appetite nationally is not there. Some of us have taken those chances, but the reality is that it's a national conversation. How much do we want to enforce? Because sometimes enforcement touches the part that other BS cannot reach. Sorry. So, well, I hope I've summarized the questions in big terms.
Thank you very much, Prof. And Prof is very available. If you go to the Standards Authority, the office with the biggest windows, that's his office. You can always go catch him there and ask your questions. Mr. Akoto.
All right, thank you very much. Let me take them quickly. I'll talk about the one from the DHL GM. It's more of a comment, but let me just add that we are not only focusing on exports, we dealing with imports as well. When you look at the processes that customs have aligned during our lunch, we aligned the import process. So our manufacturers and other things, others involved in, even the traders, they can feel free to bring in imports